Number 81, hauntings. That is the subject of today's video. As always, like it, comment on it below, click the subscribe button. All those things help other people to see these videos. I have ideas about this. I'm not sure what to think about hauntings. I'm going to float a couple ideas that I've never heard anyone else talk about. But first, I'll just give you, I've experienced several events that would classically be referred to as hauntings. So, and one of the strangest is actually my first car was, I know this is weird, but it was a 68 VW Bug. It's a great little car. And I came, I just bought it and I came out of the market and I could hear someone blasting their car radio. I thought it was really obnoxious. And the closer I got to my car, I realized it was my car. And it was still locked as I had left it, but the radio was turned, the dial was turned all the way up. It wasn't like a short circuit or anything. And so I just thought, well, that's odd, you know. Grew up having strange things happen, so didn't think that much about it. I just thought it was weird. And then where I lived at the time, I was renting a room from somebody, and I had to park on the street. I didn't have an assigned parking space. And I went out to my car one morning to go to work, and it was parked way down the street from where I had remembered parking it. And I rationalized that incident away and thought, you know, oh, I must have been really tired, or I don't remember parking that far. And then another time, it was parked way up the street, where I never parked. And I thought, okay, it's moved, like somebody moved my car, or my car moved. Because I started paying attention after that first time as to where I'd parked my car. And then another time, it was parked across the street, which I would have had to have come down, I would have had to have come home from the opposite direction, which I never ever did. And so I was like, oh, the car's haunted. Like it was interesting. That really sort of sealed it for me that something was going on with that car. A lot of places I've lived have been haunted, classically haunted. One apartment I lived in my 20s, I'm just picking some events because it'll all come together at the end of the video. One apartment I lived in the middle of the night, there was this loud crashing, banging sound from the kitchen. So I got up, I went into my kitchen, I turned on all the lights, and I couldn't find anything. And so, but I definitely had heard something like crash and break is what it sounded like. I opened up all the cabinets, there was just nothing, because I thought, well, maybe something fell over inside, like something like that. Nothing. And so the next morning I got up, and as I was making breakfast, I opened the utensil drawer with all the knives and forks and all that. And the utensil separator, you know, the thing that separates knives and forks and spoons, it had been turned completely around, like 180 degrees, inside the drawer. And I went, oh, and I picked it up and dropped it, and it made that crashing sound that I had heard in the night. So somehow the tray got turned around inside. A house that I lived in, two of the most haunted places I've ever lived in, were both brand new construction. One in particular, the more recent one, it had been built from the ground up, and then we moved in. We got to live in it. My husband and I got to live in it. It was his parents' retirement home, and we got to live there for 2 years, finishing it, like having it painted and landscaped and all that before they actually retired and moved in. So we sleep separately when we're ill, and I wasn't sleeping in our room because I wasn't feeling well. And like between 2 and 3 in the morning, he came and woke me up, and he said, "Was that you? Were you making that banging sound?" And I was like, what? It's the middle of the night. No, I wasn't making a banging sound. And he didn't seem to believe me, and he said, okay, fine. And he went back to bed in our room. I was really annoyed. I was really tired. And as I was drifting off to sleep, in the entry hall, downstairs, down the hall from where I was, I could hear this boom, boom, boom. And it sounded like we had this giant round table, stone-top table with a heavy iron base that took like 3 or 4 adults to move. And it sounded, I thought my husband was joking around. I thought he was like lifting one end up and letting it fall and smack the floor. And I thought he's going to damage the floor. It was like a brand new floor, and what was he thinking? And so again, really annoyed, I got up, I hit the light switch and walked down the hall, and I looked over the rail because it was a big circular entry, and there was, you know, no one there. And as soon as I turned on the lights, the banging stopped. And so right off to the left upstairs was our bedroom. So I went in, and my husband was asleep. I woke him up, and I told him what I was hearing. I said I could hear that, and I told him about the boom, boom, boom sound, and he said, yes, that was it. Because he had said banging, but this was more of like a booming noise. So he heard it while I was asleep, and I heard it while he was asleep, and we don't know what that was. But a few things happened in that house, but that was like one of the more significant ones. So I don't know what to think of these things. I will say I may be willing to believe in hauntings, but not ghosts, because typically ghosts, you know, people think of those as like trapped spirits or, you know, unsettled dead people or whatever, and I don't believe in that. But here's one of the one of 2 ideas I want to float about this subject, both may be possible. I had a childhood. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. The house we lived in, the longest, was about 4.5 years, from just before I started the first grade to the middle of fifth grade. It was a really significant home for me. And after we moved out of it, I dreamed about it constantly. And in my late teens and early 20s, I was having really disturbing dreams that people were harming the house. They were like putting holes in walls and ripping out kitchen cabinets and things like that. And I was angry. And some of the dreams, and I was trying to stop them and couldn't. And some of the dreams, I'd wake up in the house and I would see their tools, like workmen's tools, and I'm like, oh, they're going to come back. They're going to hurt the house. And so I'd try to mess with stuff, trying to prevent them from harming my house, right? It was still a little kid's perspective, even though I was in my 20s at this point. So in my late 30s, I was living in a different county. I happened to be in that area. I happened to be driving by and I saw an open house sign and I thought, oh, that would be cool if it were, my house. And it was. I went and followed it. It was my house. So I went in to see what it was like decades later, and those things had happened. Like an added room that was an illegal addition had been torn down. The kitchen had been completely remodeled. They reoriented the stairs. Like they had definitely done construction. And I thought, I wonder, because I used to go out of body a lot as a child in my young adult life. And I thought, I wonder if I wasn't dreaming, I was actually there at the house. And if anyone had perceived me, would they have perceived me as a ghost? I don't know, but I think that's possible. Like that's one possible explanation for things happening. I have a friend, I sit in this group of working mediums, we practice on each other, we discuss business issues related to mediumship. And as we're practicing on each other, other people have gotten one of the participants' grandmothers. I've gotten that grandmother twice really vividly. She's a very good communicator. She's still here. She's very old and out of her mind, but she hasn't passed yet. And she's such a good communicator. And I wonder if she can do that now while she's still attached to a body. What's she going to be like when she's free of a body? I'm curious about that. And if she can communicate that way, the way we do when we connect with someone who is passed, what else is she doing? Like what else could be going on there? So that's my first idea about this in some hauntings, if not all of them. The other weird thing that I've never heard anyone say is this, and I think it's really interesting and is worth investigating. The apartment that I lived in with the kitchen issue it was built in the 40s and it had just had all the windows and doors ripped out and replaced just as I moved in. The one house was brand new construction. Another home I lived in was brand new construction. I was at a friend's house when this glass of chocolate milk literally flew across the room and smashed in the middle of the floor. That house had just had a new addition, a huge new addition added onto the back of it. And I've started asking people when they tell me about haunting type stories, I'll ask them, were there any major changes to the immediate physical environment around this time? Like, did you put on a new roof or something like that? And most of the time they've said, oh yeah, we remodeled the bathroom, but that's totally unrelated. Or yeah, we ripped out all the carpeting and replaced the flooring, but that's totally unrelated. I've found that haunting type events happen around the time that there are major changes to the immediate physical environment, whether that's remodeling or building or that kind of thing. I just think that's really interesting. No one's ever talked about it, but that's all of my haunting. Everywhere I've lived where there's been some haunting thing, there's been some kind of new build or remodel going on, and most of the time when I ask people about it now, they will put it together and say, oh yeah, we did whatever, we ripped out the walls and put in new insulation, but how could that be related? And so that doesn't even occur to them. But I've noticed that's a thing. I just think that's really interesting. I have to say that I've said this before, I'll say it again, there is more to time-space reality than any of us realizes. And we don't have the technology yet to measure and perceive all of time-space reality, right? And really, if you look at all of human history, it's only extremely recently that we've been able to record images that we all agree are there, things we can all see. And then, of course, there's spectrums of light and spectrums of sound that we can't perceive without the help of technology. So I just don't, we're not there yet. I don't know how to explain hauntings. The only thing I do want to say is I do not believe in earthbound spirits or trapped spirits, people who have passed and they're trapped. Maybe there's confusion. I might be able to buy into that. I've definitely connected with people who have passed and have been startled or surprised by their own passing. That's how I know that it's an abrupt passing instead of a drawn-out illness. A few people I've literally wanted to say that did not just happen. But I didn't want to let this whole video go by without saying I don't believe in people being trapped or needing help. I think you can help people, especially if someone's a little confused or a little thrown by their own passing. we can be helpful to them, but ultimately they don't need it. Like they're going to get wherever they're supposed to be or perceive whatever they're supposed to perceive on their own. And we all have people we don't know about in spirit looking after us, helping us, and so they don't need help. No one needs help. No one is trapped. I just wanted to hit on that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this subject. I think I hit everything that I wanted to say. Next week, I want to talk about going psychic in a mediumship reading, where some people either aren't doing mediumship, they're reading the person psychically, or they start getting psychic information. And also sometimes I've heard things referred to as going psychic when they're not. It's really a mediumship thing. So I just want to talk about the subject because I need some subject for next week's video. Until then, thank you for watching this time. Like the video, comment on below, click the subscribe button, and thanks a lot. See you next week.